Welcome to Troubleshooting Innovation, a commercial baking podcast, sponsored by JLS Automation, a leader in hygienic primary and secondary robotic packaging solutions for the bakery industry. I'm your host, Joni Spencer, Editor-in-Chief for Commercial Baking, and I'm spending this season with New Haven, Connecticut-based Chabaso Bakery, a B Corp certified commercial artisan bakery, and we are visiting with various members of the team to explore their journey of becoming a certified B Corporation and how this bakery is using its business as a force for good. This week, I'm talking with Rich Jamesley, Chabaso's VP of Operations and Supply Chain, and we are talking about the ways that this B Corp certified bakery operationalizes its values on the plant floor. Hi, Rich. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Joni.
So I am really excited for this episode in particular because there can often be this sort of assumption that being a B corporation and doing good in the world is separate from manufacturing and operations. And that's not necessarily the case, right?
Correct. I think it makes a difference on how you do business every day, and being part of the B Corp world empowers the people and the company to be a force for good.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to do is sort of lay the groundwork and talk about what makes Chabaso special from a production standpoint. I know this bakery is known for making good bread that's good for you. So from a manufacturing perspective, what would you say is the key to that?
I think when it comes to artisan bread, you have special steps that are taken in order to make the bread good for you, and the people who are doing it make the difference as far as how they handle all the steps and ensure that the bread is made up to the expectation of our artisan criteria.
What does that require from your workforce in the plant?
One of the big pieces of our artisan is long fermentation. So it allows the flavor of the bread to evolve into what is special and why people love our bread. And I think the people who are doing our manufacturing know that and ensure all the quality steps are taken along the way.
So then what would you say are the primary equipment implications for staying true to an artisan product while producing it at scale? And I also just want to sort of put things into perspective and set some context as far as the size of your bakery. I think you're still considered mid-size. When I was there in 2019, your output was about 100,000 pounds of dough a day. Or is that still where you are?
We're around 100,000. We do about 10 million pounds for the year.
Okay.
And we're a 7-day operation, 3 shifts, and have roughly about 100 people who are working in the organization on the production floor.
Okay. So then how does that impact those equipment needs to produce an artisan product at scale?
Well, I think with COVID, many people started making bread at home.
Yeah.
And the one thing that you find is it takes a long time if you want to get the flavor characteristics and the formation of the bread. And when you're doing that on a large scale, there's many pauses, meaning we hold the dough so that the fermentation can develop. And then with that, we have to monitor where it is from a development standpoint so that it can progress through the various steps of mixing, shaping, proofing, baking, and then ultimately packaging.
I want to take a little sidebar here for a second because you mentioned the consumer trend of making your own sourdough during the pandemic. A lot of bakers that I talked to who make artisan bread, that kind of gave them a scare when they thought it was going to sort of impact their business. But a lot of them discovered as the pandemic wore on, a lot of consumers were like, wait, this is a lot harder than I thought it was. I think I just need to leave it to the pros and go to the store and buy some sourdough. Is that sort of what happened for you guys?
I think, Joni, as you just said, the time element to do it on a regular basis is very difficult, even if you are home and have the opportunity to progress it. I think people have a newfound sense of what bread is, and having that artisan, high quality bread on a regular basis and being able to just go to the store and pick it up fits with many people, even if they would like to do it at home.
Yeah. I feel like that trend, what it really did was bring this heightened awareness to what good bread really means, sort of created a new love affair for consumers with bread.
And I do believe that the indulgence that people would like, to have that experience if they're home or they're at home, as opposed to going to a restaurant and having that high quality bread at their fingertips without having to go through all the efforts of making it, is a great experience for people.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So Chabaso makes good bread that's good for you. And that is really at the heart of everything you guys do, which leads us to Chabaso's B Corp certification. And so this is where I want to really dive into this through an operational lens. So walk me through what some of the aspects on the plant floor that kind of already aligned with those values that made Chabaso a good candidate to be a certified B Corporation.
From a B Corp standpoint, it's all about people, planet, purpose, and profit. And obviously, as part of being a B Corp, you're a for-profit organization, and most people or most companies can wrap their heads around, we have to make money to continue operations. But then how you do it and centering around the people, the planet, and the purpose is what differentiates a B Corp from just a regular corporation. So from a people standpoint, it's looking at, how you support the people within our bakery, as well as the community that we reside in. And then how do we handle the various environmental platform of what do we do with waste and how do we handle that? And from a purpose standpoint, it's the partners that we pick and look to have them understand what B Corp is and what we're trying to do and how we can partner with them. So on the people standpoint, as we went through the pandemic and the challenges of finding people to work in our bakery, we ran through a lot of the challenges that many manufacturers did. And we had a local community organization who was handling refugees from Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And we took that opportunity to partner with them. Their name is Iris, and we partnered with them, and we were able to bring in over 20 Afghan refugees and then have them be part of our team, and then learn how we can help the community because they were now part of our community, and then have them come into the fabric of what Chabaso is and have them understand, what we're all about, and then also learn what they're about, because there are many different ways they do or handle their life that we had to learn and then figure out how we were going to support that within our operation. So that's an example of the people.
Well, okay, you bring up a really good point that I don't think we think about often enough. And that is when companies take in refugees as employees, people often think about how it's helping the refugees. But I like what you said about how it sort of caused you guys to change your thinking and learn about them. How was having the Afghan refugees as part of your workforce, how did that sort of make Chabaso better?
I think it really showed how we are a welcoming organization and that we had different demographics within the facility that over time had to learn how many of them do not speak English or have limited English. So you have to figure out ways to communicate because manufacturing is all about teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't communicate properly, you have challenges. So that was probably our first barrier. And thank God for Translate on our phones and whatnot. It was a way of us being able to communicate with them properly and help the organization evolve with the new demographics we were evolving to.
That's amazing. Okay, I'm sorry I sidetracked you a little bit. So I think the next one that you were going to touch on was the planet. Is that right?
Yeah, I think one of the things that is typical in baking is you have waste,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's bread that is not up to the expectation from a finish standpoint. There's also doughs that are made that cannot go into the finished product and you have to put them to waste. A year ago, we came up with a system that would handle all of our waste from a product standpoint that would then go to an animal feed that then gets reprocessed and repurposed.
Oh, that's awesome. And then what did that do from a business perspective?
Obviously, if you have to put waste into a traditional garbage waste stream, you have a significant cost. Here, we're able to repurpose it for use in another area that limits the impact onto the environment.
Okay, now it's people, planet.
Purpose. And I think the purpose is really just how we do business inside the facility, as well as how we do business with our partners, vendors who are supporting, and them understanding that we have these initiatives from a B Corp standpoint that we want to work with them. I think the real benefit of B Corps, and we need to continue to foster this, is really the interdependencies across different B Corps. We can have mutual goals as far as what we're trying to do with people and planet, as well as profit, and progress that. So I think our purpose, as we talk to people, we want them to understand who we are and how we want to do business and how we can both benefit from having this partnership.
Yeah, for sure. Troubleshooting Innovation is brought to you by JLS Automation, a leader in automated bakery packaging solutions. Simple and easy to use primary loading systems, cartoners, and case packers. Fill labor gaps while keeping your bakery products safe. Compatible with various sustainable packaging materials and formats. Gentle product handling from raw dough to fragile pastries and all the way to sandwich assembly. Enhance worker safety while reducing waste. When performance of your bakery line matters, JLS provides innovative solutions that help make your business a force for good. Learn more at jlsautomation.com. So, last week, Rita and I talked about how it's a little bit of a tricky proposition for a food manufacturer to gain B Corp certification, sort of as opposed to other finger quote white collar type of companies. It can be a little bit harder for a food manufacturer, and I think that's evident in the proportion of food manufacturers and baking companies in particular who are part of the B Corp network. But sometimes when things are harder, that means they're kind of more worth doing. I have a 12-year-old son, and I have to tell him that all the time. The most worthwhile things in life are the ones that require the work. So from your perspective, working in operations, why do you think it's important to have more food manufacturers certifying as B Corps despite those challenges?
I think, from an impact on the community as well as the impact on the environment, we as manufacturers of food have a significant potential negative, and that if we can be a force for good and you have more organizations and manufacturers interested in doing this, then you can have a better world for your 12-year-old as well as my children going forward. And I think being in manufacturing for 40 plus years, seeing what a B Corp is all about and really aligning an organization to be a force for good is important. And I think people want to work for that. I had worked at another B Corp, and what interested me most about Chabaso was that they were in the process of certification for B Corp. So I think there are people who are interested in being in this force for good, and I'm very proud that Chabaso has made that certification and will continue to evolve. And the one benefit about a B Corp or being within their certification process is you can't stay at the same criteria. You have to keep getting better. It's all about continuous improvement. Just because you had things for the last certification, you have to get better. It makes it more and more challenging each time, but I think it makes you better. You know, as you gave those words of wisdom to your son, I think it makes all the difference that you keep working harder to get better because there's always more opportunities. I think that's what manufacturing is all about, is how do you get better day to day? And there's always something you can do better, no matter how good you are.
Right. And I'm so happy that you mentioned that you're 40 years in this industry. That's really important. And you also used the term continuous improvement. Do you think it's fair to say that that term continuous improvement means something totally different when you're a certified B Corp than just your average food manufacturer?
Yes, I think it's the lens that you're looking at what you're going to go after and how does it fit from a people and planet and then ultimately profit standpoint. So I think it's really the lens, and it's not about giant steps. It's about little steps and keep taking them, and then really having the organization fully wrapped around what we're trying to accomplish as far as being a force for good.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of the misconception comes in, especially in such a cut and dry industry like bakery and food manufacturing, where it's very process oriented. And it's always been just a separate mindset. Doing good was something totally different from efficient manufacturing. But we're coming into an era where companies like Chabaso and other B Corp certified bakeries are bringing those two concepts together and showing that when you put purpose behind what you're doing, you can do good for the world while at the same time creating an efficient operation, right?
Yes, I think that's what it's all about as far as being a B Corp and wanting to continue to strive to get better. And the other piece is where I think some companies run into the challenges is also under the governance and the commitment from the ownership of the company to support these initiatives. You know, the criteria for that as you go through the certification process is challenging, and that group of owners have to support those initiatives.
Yeah, for sure. So Chabaso is really lucky to have you on this team, Rich, because you mentioned you came from a notable B Corp manufacturer in the baking industry, right?
Yes. And I think that in my time being involved with B Corp, both here and previously, it has given me a broader view of what you try to accomplish in manufacturing on a day-to-day basis, month-to-month basis. And then, you know, how do you look at the people within your organization and how you can support them better, as well as supporting the community. I wouldn't call all of the concepts like new concepts, but stringing them all together and having that focus from a top down is powerful within the company.
Yeah. So, from your perspective, when you joined Chabaso, they were in the certification process. So, you've came from a place that was very foundational as a B Corp, and then you join a team who's sort of in the midst of the journey. That's a really good lens to be looking at this through. So, during the course of the application, what specific types of improvements did you see being made? Because that's something that Reed and Charlie and I have talked about quite a bit in this season, in that they were already aligned, like in their hearts and what they wanted to be. They were aligned with B Corp, but in the process of that application, they obviously had to make some improvements. And they were like, yeah, we see places where we can be better and we can do better. What did that look like for you on the plant floor?
The big step as we were going through the certification process, and as you mentioned, Joni, it had started before I was there, was really figuring out how we could do more for our people. You know, how do we add to the power of our organization from within the community, which turned out to be the refugee program. But knowing that we supported it, it was challenging. It was hard. It was not just hard from, I'll call it a management standpoint. It was hard for the people on the floor to figure out how do you do this. But I think it really showed what Chabaso was all about, and that it is about a family. I think it really showed how strong the organization was to have a different population come in, but now be part of our family.
That's such an interesting way to look at it. And I love it. And you're right. You know, families do evolve, but the bond doesn't break. And when new people come in, it actually strengthens the bond.
Yeah. And I think it also gives people the appreciation for other aspects that different people have. And you know, within the community that we're in has changed and has evolved. And I think that the company, as being a partner within the community, also has to evolve and change with the demographics and what are the needs of the people. And I think that for me was a key piece as I started my journey here at Chabaso, is seeing that and seeing how the organization from the bottom up supported that. And at the same time, it was supporting our core group who have been Chabaso for 20 plus years, because we do have a strong core group. And it was just figuring out and working on how do we put this all together. So I think that was a strength of the organization and showed our journey as far as being a B Corp.
Yeah. And I do think that that's something, one of the several things that really makes Chabaso very special. I remember when I was there in 2019, learning that one of those core employees in manufacturing was someone who had a fine arts degree from Yale. And you don't really hear that very often, as someone who studied fine arts getting into manufacturing and getting their hands in dough and running machines. And just that one little example for me really illustrates that workforce culture that this company has, that you're able to attract workers and keep them. And that's something that is plaguing our industry. So do you feel like these values that make Chabaso a B Corp, you have one of the keys that's sort of unlocking a little bit of that crisis?
Yes, I think we are a family-owned business, but we are a family. Being a family and being a B Corp, to me, goes hand in hand, because that means what you're trying to do for your people and your community is your core belief. That's what Chabaso is about. And I think following the path of B Corp kind of gives us a roadmap of how we stay true to that and how do we even get better than we are for the 20 years that we've been doing this business.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's sort of a pointed question that I know you're probably going to want to say, well, the answer is in this entire conversation, lady, but I'm going to say it anyway. From an operational standpoint, how has becoming a certified B Corp made Chabaso a better manufacturer?
It makes it better because people understand what the company is about and what they're trying to accomplish. And it's not just about profit. Any for-profit organization obviously is trying to make money. And I think, many manufacturers are geared towards that because of who's invested in them and who are the owners of it. But when you're in the B Corp world and you have those beliefs, it's not just about profit. It's about what are you doing for your people and community, as well as how you're impacting the environment. So I think that's the key, that some manufacturers who have the criteria of profit as being, the number one goal. For us, profit will come as long as we are doing the proper things with people, planet, and purpose.
I love that. And that's, you're sort of answering my last question. And that is just sort of advice for other commercial bakeries. How can other commercial bakeries get over that hump that we talked about with, it's really hard. It is hard for a food manufacturer, a commercial bakery it's hard for any company to get B Corp certification, but it's especially challenging for a commercial bakery. So what's your advice for getting over that hump that might be holding a bakery back from exploring this? Especially smaller operations like mid-sized companies like yourselves that don't have a ton of resources.
Once an organization does the research on what is B Corp and what is it driving and, how do you evolve from your current path, I think it really makes a ton of sense. And then all of a sudden you start looking at what are your core values and then what are your goals that you're trying to achieve. And I think that if you take the force for good of a B Corp, you can then start building those, and it really helps with the operational performance that, any manufacturer needs to achieve. I mean, we've gone through this past year, which, had its ups and downs and challenges, and we were able to have our operational efficiencies increase by over 15%.
Wow.
And in manufacturing, for an established organization is fantastic. And my belief is it's all done through teamwork, and the teamwork really centers around what the company is all about. And being that we are following the beliefs of a B Corp and, we are certifying what we're doing, I think it's helped driving the operational performance. So for companies who are looking to do this, it gets a focus for the organization about what you're all about and how you're going to drive results.
I love that. That's such great advice. And it's a great way to close this episode. The only thing I can follow that with is that it's really just the beginning, right?
Yeah, it's a journey, and we're in the early stages of the journey. And as we go down this path, new things will come about. We'll then have to figure out how do we incorporate that into our plans with the lens of being a B Corp. And I think that's our guiding light as we go forward and look to be more and more successful.
Yeah. So next week, we're going to dive into that. And you and I are going to continue this conversation, but we're also going to have Charlie Nagaro, Chabaso's president, join us. And we are going to talk about what it takes to get recertified every 3 years, because anybody who's been to IBIE knows that 3 years goes by really fast. So we are going to look at your plans for improvement with a 3-year horizon next week with Charlie. So I'm looking forward to that. But for now, Rich, thank you so much for sharing your perspective with me. I love it.
Thanks, Joni. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Troubleshooting Innovation podcast. And a special thank you to our sponsor, JLS Automation. For more information on JLS and its hygienic robotic bakery packaging solutions, visit jlsautomation.com.